15 most violent prisons on earth. 15. Stanley Prison, Hong Kong. Stanley Prison in Hong Kong holds some of the nation's most brutal and violent offenders. It was built in 1937 and is a maximum security facility, one of 6 in Hong Kong. It was a popular place of execution before the Hong Kong government lifted capital punishment in 1990. Between 1946 and 1966, about 122 criminals were executed in the gallows of the prison. This prison allowed the death penalty, and more than 600 prisoners have been executed since the prison opened. Its population generally tends to stay around the 3,000 inmate mark. 14. Camp 1391, Northern Israel. Camp 1391 is a high-risk Israel Defense Forces prison camp located in northern Israel. The existence of prison was unknown to public before 2003, and most information about it remains classified. Though Israel's Supreme Court ordered the release of some information about the jail. 13. Butyrka Prison, Moscow, Russia. Butyrka Prison, Moscow is the largest central transit prison in Moscow, and it's known for its brutality. It held 20,000 inmates during the Great Purge, and thousands of them were executed. The overcrowding inside the jail is so rampant that sometimes 100 prisoners are placed inside a single cell, which was only intended to hold 10. Its administrations also resorted to violence every time the inmates tried to report to protest against anything. Diseases such as AIDS and tuberculosis are extremely common. 12. Gitarama Central Prison, Rwanda. Gitarama Central Prison is located in Rwanda, Africa, described as hell on earth. The conditions inside the prison have been so bad that prisoners in the past have resorted to eating each other's flesh just to stay alive. All prisoners were doomed to eat, sleep, live, rot, and die squeezed together, with 4 men per square yard in the roofless brick box called the Gitarama Prison. It was originally designed to house just 400 prisoners. However, in the 1990s, it housed nearly 7,000 inmates, and prisoners were left to death there. Amid this diarrhea and despair, prisoners stand cramped together under all weather conditions, choking on the smoke of cooking fires and suffering from gangrene. They even resort to eating each other's flesh out of sheer desperation. 11. Camp 22, North Korea. Camp 22 is a political prison camp, and it is officially known as Kwang number 22. It has gained international attention in 2012 after its warden defected to China. This concentration camp is completely isolated from the outside world and has been in operation since 1965. Prisoners, and sometimes even their families, are held lifelong detainees here for petty crimes or for no apparent reason at all. It was claimed that 3 generations of dissident families have been imprisoned there to completely remove the roots. In addition, this camp has subjected inmates to extreme torture and human experimentations, where they become lab rats for biological weapons like anthrax, bomb testing, and other brutalities. There are an estimated 50,000 inmates inside this camp. 10. San Quentin Prison, California. San Quentin Prison, California is the oldest prison in the state. It opened in July 1852, where both male and female inmates were incarcerated. Nowadays, it is the largest death row for male inmates in the United States. During 1930s, corruption was rampant in this prison, where interracial riots became a normal occurrence and were encouraged by the guards. until a new director, Clinton Truman Duffy, appealed the inhuman conditions at the prison, decided to implement reforms in the 1940s. Even a petty offense to prison regulations would land an inmate in solitary, and race riots would put inmate lives at risk on a regular basis. San Quentin is still a harsh environment filled with California's most violent offenders, and the high ratio of guards to general population just barely keep the prison system from spiraling out of control. 9. Bang Kwang Prison, Thailand. Bang Kwang Central Prison, located in the Nansapuri province of Thailand, is about 7 miles north of Bangkok, known as the Bangkok Hilton. That Bangkok Hilton housed the Nabania chained inmates, many of whom went crazy due to the stress of the first months in detention. This means only correctional facility is considered one of the worst prisons in the far East. It's known for being overcrowded, understaffed, and having deplorable living conditions. This jail even houses several foreign prisoners as well as inmates whom awaiting their execution. Poor medical care is standard at this prison, with sick inmates shackled to their beds as they wait for medicines they probably will never get. If you find yourself on this row at Bang Kwang, you will have leg irons waited on until your execution, and you will be given only 2 hours notice before dying by lethal injection. 8. Rikers Island Prison, New York. Rikers Island Prison, New York is one of America's most notorious prisons. It was characterized by beatings, stabbings, and brutal treatment not only from the guards but also from inmates who were deployed as enforcers by the guards, filled primarily with offenders who are visible minorities. Jailed on due offenses, the prison is a hotbed of violence and aggression. It gained media attention in 2007 when an 18 years old prisoner was beaten senseless with a billy club by other teenage inmates and the guards looked on. 6 inmates committed suicide, hanging themselves with bed sheets in their cells during the first 6 months of 2003 alone. It is also known for its cruel treatment for mentally ill prisoners who often turn to suicide. 7. ADX Florence Supermax Facility, Colorado. The ADX Florence Supermax prison is said to house the most dangerous criminals in the United States, located in Fremont County, Colorado. It has a population of just 439 inmates currently, but has the tightest security in the country. Since prisoners are isolated from the staff and they can't go anywhere, inmates suffer from psychological torture, leading some to commit suicide, described by inmates as a nightmare vision of punishment meant to inflict misery and pain. This clean version of hell is also a violent place, despite all the steps taken to segregate and isolate the general population, also known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The prison opened in 1994. 6. Alcatraz Island Prison, San Francisco. Alcatraz Island Prison, San Francisco is known as the Rock or Devil's Island, was built to house the criminals of the 1920s who broke laws during times of prohibition leading into the Great Depression. As inmates lost contact with the outside world, they were subjected to abusive and arrogant guards who imposed complete silence, as prisoners were not only disallowed to converse with each other but to show their emotions as well. As can be expected, this was no boon to mental health, and many inmates was insane as they were forced to endure the stringent conditions of the prison without any conversation or other release for their emotion. The prison was shut down in 1963, but its grim legacy lives on in film and legend. 5. La Sante Prison, France. La Sante Prison of Paris, France first opened in 1867 during World War II. The prison held common criminals as well as war criminals. Ironically, La Sante, which means health, is not a good place for prisoners' mental and physical well-being, as they were forced to live in deplorable conditions in overcrowded concrete cells with rats and lice. A virtual hell hole, this understaffed torture chamber of violence can make any person lose his sanity with the harsh daily realities of life. Suicide was rampant at La Sante, with a staggering 122 self-inflicted deaths of prisoners in 2002 and 73 more by mid-2003. The tendency to suicide could be linked to terrible living conditions that plunged inmates into clinical depression. Overcrowding, understaffing, and prison violence led these people to swallow drain cleaner in order to end their suffering once and for all. 4. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison in southeastern Turkey was built in 1980. Since then, it has imprisoned many of that nation's most violent criminals. This prison is known for a great number of instances of physical and mental torture. It also gained notoriety for its unlivable condition, sexual abuse of inmates, and for incarcerating even children for life. To escape their situation, inmates attempted hunger strikes, committed suicide, and even set themselves on fire. There are two sections within the facility, namely the E type, which has a capacity of 744 prisoners, and the D type with a 688 capacity. However, both currently hold more prisoners than they should. 3. La Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. La Sabaneta Prison in Venezuela is one of the most brutal penal facilities in South America, located in Venezuela, which is known for its brutal prisons. La Sabaneta is the worst of the worst, a place where cholera outbreaks have wiped out 700 inmates amidst appalling violence, and raids that triggered a horrific massacre of 100 inmates back in 1994. Violence is a daily occurrence. Besides being at the mercy of diseases, insufficient food and care, little to no medical services, and underpaid staff, inmates were also left to their own devices as they fashion weapons to kill one another. 2. Tadmor Prison, Syria. The Tadmor prison, located in Tadmor in the deserts of Syria, is about 200 kilometers from Damascus. It is dubbed by Amnesty International as the most oppressive prison in the world, with every aspect of it designed to dehumanize its populace. Described as a kingdom of death and madness by a former detainee, Tadmor features bloodthirsty guards who butcher inmates with axes and political prisoners who are starved to concentration camp emaciation by prison administrators. When guards are not busy trying up inmates and dragging them to this, they can be found chopping up the body parts in one of the prison's several country yards. The prison originally was meant to be a military detention facility. However, during in the 80s, they began housing all sorts of criminals inside. In 1980, President Hafiz al-Assad ordered execution of 2,100 prisoners inside. The prison was shut down in 2001, however, it was opened back again in 2011. Number 1. Carandiru Prison, Brazil. The Carandiru Penitentiary located in São Paulo, Brazil, first opened in 1920. However, it didn't house its first criminals until 1956. In 1992, where riots triggered the mass execution of inmates by the guards, the prison became notorious for having insanely high body count of 1,300 deaths as the course of its 46 years in history. The violence wasn't the only thing treating the unfortunate residents for this dark place. An AIDS epidemic at the facility spread rapidly, with as many as 1 of 5 of the inmates suffering from the disease. It was closed down in 2002 due to the campaigns of Amnesty International amidst reports of gross human rights violations that the Brazilian government couldn't answer for. Thank you for watching.